Poštovani gledatelji, dobar dan i dobrodošli u novo izdanje emisije Diplomacija, koja se bavi diplomacijom i diplomatskim odnosima između zemalja, djelovanjem stranih veleposlanika u Republici Hrvatskoj i naravno gradnjom dobrih bilateralnih odnosa između dvaju zemalja. Naš današnji gost je veleposlanik Republike Slovenije ovdje u Hrvatskoj, njegova ekscelencija Gašper Dovžan. Your Excellency, welcome, and it's so nice to have you here.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
And thank you for taking the time to be here.
With pleasure. Yes, it's our duty.
At the beginning of our show, I would just like to congratulate Mrs. Nataša Pirc-Musar on her election recently as the new president of the Republic of Slovenia, and we wish her a good career and successful mandate.
Thank you very much indeed. She is the first woman president in Slovenia, which is something special. And of course she will now have the ceremony of taking over the duties in late December, and by now the preparation and the transition will go on, but before that happens we are still waiting for the old president to visit Croatia, so this is something we still have ahead of us.
Okay, so then we can talk about that as well, perhaps. But as I've said in the introduction, the main topic of our show is diplomacy and diplomatic relations, and I believe those are extremely important when it comes to neighboring countries, such as Slovenia and Croatia. We have many things in common. We are both the part of European Union, NATO, hopefully in the future the Eurozone and Schengen. So how would you, at the beginning, describe our relations?
I think we have very good relations. Historically, we have been together part of many same state formations in the past. We never had any wars, and in those state formations we were always allies. And I think with those new frameworks you mentioned, like EU, NATO, and now Croatia entering also Eurozone and Schengen, we are getting there again. So, and I'm pretty sure that in all those formations we have very much in common, very similar interests, and it is really important that we work together and work very closely to pursue our common goals. At the same time, of course, we have also some open questions, but it's very important not to focus only on that, because then we tend to forget on all that is excellent. Yes. And I think we should always focus also on what really connects us, which is of course culture, sports, business, tourism. So it's many interpersonal relations, many mixed families, marriages, and I think those, I mean, the friendship between Croatians and Slovenians is really deep, and we feel that as guests in Croatia, and I hope that also Croatian citizens feel that when they come to Slovenia.
I'm sure they do, and as you said, we have some unresolved issues, let's call them that, and we'll talk about that later, but I also think that they didn't affect our relationship.
Well, of course, those, I would say, those open questions, they have common denominator, and the common denominator is not it's a fact that our common state was dissolved, the former Socialist Republic of Yugoslavia. And all those basically open questions arise due to that fact. And we were not always successful in managing those open questions. And some of them we resolved, some not. But I think even in times when the rhetoric on both sides was, let's say, more robust, or let's say more rough, people somehow still remained friends. Businesses still worked together. tourism was always going very smoothly, and I think Slovenians were always there to save and tourist season in Croatia, even in time during the war in the 90s and during the pandemic time. So we were always somehow contributing also to Croatia, and I think people appreciate that, and we also have more or less common understanding of many questions. We also, when it comes to some very basic things like food, we have, I would say, very similar taste, very similar cuisine that we know. We Croatians know Slovenians cuisine, Slovenia know Croatian cuisine. We also know your brands, especially when it comes to food brands. And this really connects, I think, people and makes, let's say, us still one, in a sense, common space, because we have so much in common. It's really so interconnected that, and just speaking about the numbers, maybe people are not aware, but, every third euro that is invested abroad from Slovenia goes to Croatia, and the other way around as well. And our trade in goods and services amounts to more than 7 billion yearly. And try to calculate the families that live from that number. It's 7 billion, it's a lot. So, so this is really huge economic bond, much stronger than Croatia has with any other neighbor, which is, I think, good, but creates also, I would say, huge responsibility, of course, to nurture this and to try to improve and to maintain, let's say, balanced economic cooperation, which is always good. And so far we are doing extremely well. And I hope that Croatia joining Eurozone and, of course, also Schengen will help that there are going to be even less administrative barriers, and that we will see in future even higher number and even more, I would say, interconnected markets and societies.
It would be nice, yeah, we hope so as well. You are here for 6 months, I believe. You're the ambassador. Almost, okay. And what do the Croats most often ask you about Slovenia?
Well, it depends. I think privately they all, like to speak about sports, about our mountains, but also about our tourism. We still have, a sort of common space when it comes to sports, because, all stars in basketball or football, they are known. Croatian stars are known in Slovenia, Slovenian stars are known in Croatia. And there's mutual, I would say, tendency to support, the champions of the others. And I think this is very, very nice, and I'm really much also sometimes even surprised how much people in Croatia know so much about sports in Slovenia, or so much about Slovenian mountains, so it's really, really interesting. And these kinds of questions I usually get. So we have always something to discuss or cheer, and so it's because always is some competition. We are just ahead of the soccer World Championship, and unfortunately Slovenia is not represented, which means that I would say many Slovenians, including myself, would cheer and cross fingers for Croatian team. Yeah, I think this is quite nice, and these kind of questions I usually get. But of course, also music and art and culture. I think also many Croatian bands are well known in Slovenia. You have, I mean, since the 80s, I mean, who wouldn't know Prljavo kazalište, ili Parni valjak,
or Maršni Franc in the other way around.
The other way around, or even we had two cellos with a little bit of, you know, even one quarter of let's say Slovenian part of the duo. So it's really interesting, and I think all those stories really connect our two nations and go much deeper and far beyond of, let's say, ordinary political dialogue. And even if we have some, you know, open exchange, even in daily paper on certain issues, this would not affect that social part, which is so deep because of this cultural aspect.
And what would you say, what makes Slovenia recognizable in Europe from all?
Yeah, I think Croatia, we have sort of, you know, common point of departure because our states were born on the same day, so we are known as a, you know, young state that joined EU and NATO, and this is the political part. But then, of course, we are also known as a green country, as a very clean country. Just recently there was a ranking list published, and we got place 7, which is obviously very good. And then we are also known for having extraordinary good athletes, which is, you know, for a country of that size, something really extraordinary, and all people ask, how is this possible? So there must be something also in our culture, in our system, that we are doing well. And I think these are, you know, and then of course tourists, they like mountains, they like caves, they like, you know, this diverse, this mixture of having on a very small piece of land, very diverse possibilities how to spend time, but also rich history. And I think this is a very interesting mix, even for people coming from, you know, Asia or far east. But when it comes for those, I would say sometimes we are perceived as a region, and in this region we have, as a region together with Croatia, and in this sense we have a lot of things in common which we could do to make us as a region more recognizable, not in Europe but outside Europe, because if tourists or investor or someone comes, it's not, I mean, it's so small for the you know, from the perspective of United States or Latin America or Asia. This is, you know, it's very important that we as a region somehow work together, and there's not a lot of administrative barriers in between, because this is, you know, additional added value for someone that comes from very far. So we have really, I would say, good perspective, especially after Croatia also joins Euro area and Schengen.
Yes, there are many things to love about Slovenia, and I think that is one of the reasons, the main reason, why many Croats live there. What do you think, what can be done to improve the position of Croatian minority in Slovenia and the other way around?
Yeah, and indeed, I mean, a lot of Croatian people also live in Slovenia. Most of them, of course, are also citizens of Slovenia, so they have enjoy full rights as any other citizen. But of course, they have constitutional right to cherish and you know, nurture their culture, and of course language. And here, I think something similar is also in Croatia, where maybe Slovenians in Croatia have different status, because Croatia has somehow totally different constitutional or legal model to support, or how Croatia defines minority, and everything goes then from this definition. But I think when we are speaking about substance and what can be done, I think we could do much more to assist language learning of the native language. Croatians in Slovenia, but also Slovenians in Croatia. And we have quite some challenges here, but they could be somehow resolved. And I think here, as an embassy, we are trying to work in this direction. Sometimes it's difficult because there's a lack of people, there's a lack of teachers, but with persistence and systematic approach, I think much can be done. There are also many possibilities also for Croats in Slovenia, in cooperation with schools and ministry, to also increase the number of native Croatians or others to learn Croatian in Slovenia. But usually it also takes some effort from citizens as well. So it's not always that the state can do everything. But with this and in this interaction, I think much could be done, because I'm fully convinced that learning language of a neighboring country is always an asset, and especially since we are so close, and it pays off sooner or later. It also enriches. It also gives you a window to look in another country, in another culture, to understand more. And we had this experience also when we joined EU. And also Slovenia has minorities in Italy and in Austria, and the number and the interest for learning Slovenian in Italy and in Austria increased dramatically, including among Austrians and Italians. So this is something that is also going to happen. And this, we have to find solutions to support that we have this linguistic capability to really, communicate better in Croatian and in Slovenian language.
You mentioned state. I think that the relationship with authorities are also very important. So how would you describe your relationship with Croatian authorities, not just with the Foreign Affairs Minister, Mr. Grlić Radman, but also I know that you've recently visited our Minister of Culture and Media, Nina Obuljen-Koržinek. So how are you satisfied with those relations?
I'm extremely satisfied because I'm all basically, the political elite in Croatia knows Slovenia very well, also knows, people in Slovenia. So it's always interesting because in all those official meetings, I hear that ministers have direct communications. So this is always good, and sometimes makes us inconvenient as diplomats, which are in charge of good communication, and sometimes we are a little bit inconvenient because there's so much going on without us. But we have to admit this is a success, that the ministers have direct communication, that they talk each other, they have telephone conversations. So this is really going very, very fast nowadays, and I think this is for a neighboring country very good. But I'm also very glad that I was well received in Zagreb. I had meetings with a number of ministers, including Minister of Defense, Minister of Education, economy, foreign affairs, agriculture, so interior. So it's a long list, and they all received me, and it's really good that since we are so close, it's always good that there are some also personal acquaintance, that they know who I am, and that they know that I'm always there. If there's something I could, work on to assist our relation, that I'm at disposal. This is our job, but our job is also to, go around. Croatia is so, beautiful, and not everything happens in Zagreb. So this is why I also try to visit the regions. I've been to Istria, I've been to Goransko-Primorska Županija, I've been also to Osijek, to Šibenik, to Gospić last week. So yeah, it's really interesting, and everywhere I find very nice people that have great appreciation of our country and great interest also to work together, to improve and to work, in order to accelerate economic cooperation, to accelerate student exchange, to accelerate tourist exchange, improve conditions for investment, work on infrastructure. Well, this is challenging sometimes, but it's important that that we communicate, and that also, regions have the feeling that we are also there to assist, of course, within the framework of their competences.
You've mentioned that you visited quite a few cities in Croatia and a few regions. When can we expect you in Split, precisely?
Yes, in Split. Split is still on the list. Okay. As embassy, of course, we do visit Split, and not so long ago we had a celebration in the civil society organization of Slovenians in Split, and my deputy visited Split at that time, and so we are somehow present, but as ambassador I have not come to that yet. But it's on the list. I hope I will be able to visit Split somewhere in the, let's say, first half of the next year. But this year, unfortunately, it's a busy schedule. This will not be possible, but hopefully early next year, definitely in the first half of the next year.
Okay. And what would you say about that part of Croatia? Dalmatia and Split particularly. Is it recognized in Slovenia?
Of course. Who doesn't know? Of course it's recognized. Even for me, I as a child, I always explain this because I grew up in the 80s basically, and at that time it was the most important thing were basketball games, and Croatia at that time had Split, Šibenik, Cibona, and Zagreb. So these were really, and we all had at that time still the same country. We learned about the Dalmatia and the islands and the history. So this was something we grew up with. But then, of course, we also, as tourists, visited those places: Split, Trogir, Šibenik, Zadar, Bol, Brač, and Hvar, Korčula, Pelješac. So you name it. We basically are familiar with the region, and I was very happy that some also Slovenian investors saw the potential in that region. And last week I visited two companies around Šibenik, and also one near Gospić. So it's incredible. They're really good investors, bringing also some working places to the region. So, and this is of course due to the fact that we know the region, and Slovenians have, you know, somehow mutual trust, and they are also very satisfied with local workforce. Of course, there's the challenge of lacking workforce, but those that are there, they have strong bond and great relationships. So I was really impressed, and although all that would not have been possible without, I mean, also you know, Slovenian businessmen knowing the region so well and seeing the potential in the region. And I think I hope that they are just you know, early birds, and the others will follow, because it's really great potential. The infrastructure is being developed, the sea is there, and the tourism is there, but there's so much opportunities also outside the main tourist season. And Slovenians, since we are, you know, also I would say the biggest private investors in the region. I'm speaking about individuals that are, you know, investing in real estate, buying houses, and this is also running economy. But you know, people then come, they leave, and they have so many ideas what is still possible. And I think this is really something that that is beneficial, mutually beneficial, and bears already fruits, because we are seeing investments coming to the region, and I'm sure the others will follow. And since they are successful, the others will follow also from abroad, not only from Slovenia. So I think this is a very good example, and we have to speak more about, you know, shipyard Iskra in Šibenik, how well they're doing, and how, you know, good products they have, and how with, you know, Croatian knowledge and Slovenian capital, they sell, you know, elite boats for fish farms in Norway. So it's incredible, but it's happening. So it's really something that puts that we are working together and putting the region on the, let's say, wider European map.
That was my next question, actually. Do you think so there's a chance of joint approach on the third market?
I think that's already happening, but it's not, you know, only up to the governments. I think what is up to the government is to create, let's say, stable environment, and this is what we are doing with joining, you know, all those frameworks, but also investing in infrastructure that would serve the economy. But otherwise, I have been last week in the production of they are producing aluminium, and they are making folios and different types of aluminium, and they are really doing well in the world market. And it's, you know, cooperation, Slovenian and Croatian, and also the Calcit, that's another company that produces, calcium carbonate, which is so important in paper industry, in pharmaceuticals, in many other industry branches, and it's really high-tech company using, also Croatian knowledge, Croatian engineers, and of course getting important tenders on world market. But of course, what they need is, let's say, a better infrastructure. Not to, drive these trucks through, villages. That of course affects the local population. These kind of things, where we, as governments, somehow, we in Slovenia, but also here Croatia, have to work in order to improve the environment. And then I think this common approach to the third markets will will develop even further, where I think we could do more in an organized way, is tourism, because I know that Croatia is doing a lot to, to break this wrong perception that Croatia is only, Adriatic coast. It's much more than that, and it's not only seasonal tourism, it's yearly tourism. But when it comes to yearly tourism, and as I said earlier, for those that are coming from, other continents, we are sometimes perceived as region. And I think here we should really work together to develop regional products. I think here there's a lot of potential, and with many benefits because to other businesses. Because first, people need to know, to have an idea about the region as tourists. And then maybe, this perception is widely recognized that it is safe region with good developing infrastructure, with many potential, and then also investors would come. And I think this is really, really strategic to work together in order to attract, let's say, global attention as a region that is, well placed in Europe, that has great potential, also good strategic location when it comes to challenges in energy, when it comes to challenges in logistics. That can really serve as a bridge between, let's say, Europe and some other distant continents. And here I think it's a great potential that we have to work on even more to exhaust it.
I agree. We are near the end of the show, so I would just like to ask you, what do you like most about Croatia? What's your favorite singer, favorite dish?
Well, that's difficult to answer. I really like a lot about Croatia. I mean, when it comes to food, of course, I like fish, but I also like some local specialities, like in Slavonia we all like kulen, the meat, or in Zagorje we like cheese dumplings, which are really something I adore. When it comes to nature, we all like sea, but also other parts. Here in Zagreb, I really like Sljeme. I adore because it's really nice place to rest, to have, let's say, some recreational activities. So I think the country has really a lot to offer. Forests also, beautiful water landscapes, nature parks. So this is, I think, a country with a very high quality of life, good food, and of course, the last but not least, very nice people. I think we are really enjoying here the whole family. We've also been to some other places, but we never felt so at home than here. People are really nice and warm. Even on the street, it's not the usual coldness you somehow see in the Western or Northern Europe. Here is more, let's say, warm, and we really like this atmosphere in Zagreb and in wider Croatia.
I believe that's precisely what the Croats like most in Slovenia, the people.
Hopefully, I'm glad to hear that, and we are trying to do our best. I think I mean, every person is basically nowadays an ambassador, because you never know who is the person you're talking to. There's no reason to not to be polite. So yeah, it's nice to hear.
Yes. Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time, for making time for our show, and for being here. And I hope we'll be seeing each other in the future as well.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you also to all those who are following your show, and the best of luck to this series. I hope it will bring more information about other countries in Croatia, also in English for the foreigners who live here. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you once again. Poštovani gledatelji, evo došli smo do kraja još jednog izdanja emisije Diplomacija. Do sljedećeg susreta ostanite uz program televizije Jadran i lijep pozdrav!